Hello, you all. This is LionJudah.com. I'm John Wilson, and today we're going to talk about destroying the preschool to prison pipeline. That's our thread for today. That's the topic we're going to be covering until we achieve our desired results, which is destroying the preschool to prison pipeline. And one thing that happens when we talk about preschool and prison is that they both rely on the same dependencies, and a lot of the same dependencies, which all center around the Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin is a three-council member of Satan, and what happens is there's a lot of dependencies, and one of the main dependencies, especially within this idea of people going from preschool to prison, is that the belief or the seed of thought that's planted in a lot of our children, well, not a lot, but 99.9% of our children, is that George Washington was white, which is a lie. And there's another, or that George Washington being the first president was a white man, and that's not true. George Washington was black. It's very, very well documented, because white people don't own slaves. That's the whole reason this country started. So it's that plus the idea that man is able to go to space, or that there's space travel, that there's something in that, and in that whole understanding of space travel. As Christians, we believe that Adam is the only man that made it to space, because that's what our holy book tells us, because he was the only person able. He was the only person who was able to get in front of Cain, to get in front of Cain technologically and spiritually, to create a vessel to get to heaven, which is notated in the holy book of Enoch. Um, but in getting to that, which are the cornerstones of the dependencies, I should say, of the preschool to prison pipeline, I have to talk about my experiences. My first experience is about being targeted by the Sanhedrin, and this reoccurring theme of slavery that keeps coming back from my first experiences of being targeted in elementary school in a county that's so as a child, what happens a lot is, when you come up in a place like Montgomery County, because you're in a child's place, you're a slave. You're dependent upon others, elders, to lead you and guide you. And what you don't see a lot of times as a child, hoping to evolve to a white man, a white bull, if you will, is that you don't notice that the initials of the place that you live and the capital city are both the initials of Satan, being Montgomery County and D.C. And Montgomery County, of course, representing Mark and Cain, and D.C. representing the devil and Cain. So as a child, you don't realize that, but that's kind of the hook of the strength of the Sanhedrin, of the devil, to say, hey, look, these youngins don't know what that means. We're going to rally around that, and use that as leverage to enslave, to make people enslaved, and put it into a place that they enjoy it. And when you're trying to escape oppression, if things like this aren't told to you, and you're not allowed to read the Bible, it's kind of the point of the whole grasp of oppression. And these symbolic archetypes, they're a point, like I said, of rallying around their members to say, hey, look, there are a bunch of people who don't know what's going on. They want freedom, and we absolutely don't want them to have that, because uh, what happens is we have a lot of people that claim to sleep under the tent of freedom, but they don't. They're actually doing the opposite. And coming from where I'm from, where you're Montgomery County, where there are people teaching kids that uh, George Washington was a white man, and that there are astronauts going to space, and there's a NASA Space Center and a Goddard Space Center, is that it's complete and total fallacy. It's treasonous. It's propaganda. And I didn't realize that this was so bad until I was maybe in fifth grade, when a fellow classmate turned to me, and we started talking about uh, this classmate with the symbolic initials MAC, and coming up, he was in elementary school. You kind of know who's the good athlete and the tough kids in school. And so it finally comes a time where we're about to get promoted to sixth grade, and so we go to middle school and check the spot out, and we're all talking about our hopes, dreams, and wishes to get to middle school. And I remember being so excited to just get into something new and finally get away from my elementary school, which really wasn't a good experience for me as I remember it, because I always remember being targeted. And finally, one of the kids, this what I thought was a tough kid, who we call the Mac sometimes, and he broke down and was like, "Oh man, I don't want to go there." And there were a lot of kids that were upset about going, but he was broke into full on crying, and was really concerned about violence. And he was like, he doesn't want to get beat up by the big kids, woo woo, because he was a big kid in elementary school. So what happens is he turns to me, and we're not really that good of friends at the time, but he turns to me and says, "Look, they're going to get you because your mouth is too big. You talk too much. You're definitely going to get beat up. That's just what's going to happen." And I looked at him like, I handle my own around here. I respect you as the tough guy around here, but I'm not taking a whole bunch of L's physically, except for when I go home, because I was abused as a kid. And, it kind of toughened me up to like, there's nothing you little kids can do to me in this elementary school. Let's move to the next thing, because, this isn't the place for me. But, my classmate living in the neighborhood, it was kind of one of those things where, you leave your security blanket. And I kind of understood it, but at the same time, it's that it's something, not something, but my conscience tells me, look, keep tabs on this kid, because he just told you some information that you needed to know, that he thinks that you're a certain way and you're not really that way. So like I said, that's kind of the storyline of shaping up to being targeted. And it's one of those things where I still know this person and had words with him while I was locked up recently. And it's one of those things where he lets out, yeah, we're still targeting you. I'm still trying to feed you lies, and I still want to see you in slavery. And that's all that's going on here in California is slavery. There's a lot of slavery going on, and it needs to stop. And it's got to stop with the conscious level to tell the kids, hey, look, there's something else to this. These people are lying to you wholeheartedly because they want to get you in prison. They want to see you in slavery. And me coming out of the jail system, I spent 10 days there, and coming out, it's the stigmatism and the conscious level that the Sanhedrin is fully aware that you're in there, and they're fully aware of everything you're saying, and they're fully aware of what it took to get you in there, keep you in there, and keep you in a child's position or slave's position when you get out, which I am still in, and which is why I'm trying to give content, and I've worked on an infrastructure, if you will, of freedom, because that's what I do as the Lion of Judah. And this thing is something I've been pushing on. This infrastructure of freedom is something that I've been building on since 2012, and coming into 2021, it was known through affiliates through the Sanhedrin that this pandemic was going to take place. And so I started preparing myself a long time ago on a lot of different fronts. But digitally, I started preparing the infrastructure for the body of Christ, for uniting under the temple of Christ in 2012. So, in being that I was 10 years old when I first figured out I was targeted, I just wrote down it's 33 years later. That almost 33 years to the date, because you got to remember that we went to go check out the middle school in the springtime, because school starts in the fall. So these 33 years of knowledge of seeing the Sanhedrin and the people that live and operate under what they do. I've developed a digital computer application to help children and adults escape slavery. And children escaping slavery and knowing that, hey, look, there's something else going on here, is a very important part to the target matrix. And this target matrix isn't something that I've come up with it's literally come up with in my last 33 years or 10 years, but it's literally in the Bible in a couple different spaces. And I, in my next update, we'll get into some more of that on exactly how it appears in the Bible. But it's in there, and it's in there in, like I said, a couple different places. Because as a child, what they want you to believe that escaping slavery has to do with a physical escape from chains and whips, and it has nothing to do with that. Or I should say, very, very little to do with that. That's more of the penal portion, the penalty portion of dealing with the Sanhedrin, more so than it is the actual grasp of slavery. Because being here in California, where men are allowed to marry men and women can marry women, that's slavery. And that bleeds back into the conscious level of the truth about what's going on here. And like I said, it has nothing to do with ropes and chains, and has more to do with brainwashing and rape, and in particular child rape. That's what kind of facilitates the idea of slavery, is that you push somebody down and keep them down into a child's place by any means necessary, and the best way is to keep them scared for their life. And as I look back and I tell you about my friend who shares or I should say my associate, who I associated with for a long time, because it was obvious at 5th grade that this person is a slave. They have fear, they have they don't want to leave from under women. And that's one of the things that's so important about slavery, is that once you understand how a slave views a woman, you've got to take notes on that. That's part of the growth and the spiritual growth, and it's in the Bible, but it's also something that we need to take account of on an individual basis. Because the enslaved nature, like I said, the Sanhedrin in our youth society is not physical escape, but it's more of a conscious escape. Because this idea that the Sanhedrin tells us about freedom being physical or material, it's an illusion. Because like I said, freedom is about a conscious step to segregate yourself. And this segregation has to first start as a mental segregation, and then later it manifests itself into an actual physical segregation. And there's a process to this. There's a process to this segregation, and it starts first with emancipation. And next comes independence, and then comes freedom. And these are conscious steps before they actually become physical steps. And I'm going to say that again. It's emancipation, independence, and freedom. And the people, especially people up under the Sanhedrin, want to make them seem like it's all the same thing. Oh, emancipation and freedom is all the same thing. But our nation actually has gone through this same process. We didn't just step into freedom. We had to first emancipate ourselves from England, and then say, hey, look, we're independent now. We're an independent nation. And then we did that in 1776. Freedom wasn't actually guaranteed within the Constitution until 1788. And a lot of people forget that, and they want to throw the 1776 out there like it's something more than what it is. So what happens is, in the first steps of emancipation is becoming conscious of the socialists that are around you, and using a spreadsheet, as I have been preparing the digital application, is one of the core concepts to emancipation. And the first step is becoming aware of the socialists around you and everything that they're doing, and taking notes, and taking notes on what they do, where they live, what side of town they're on, what they're up to, what they're into, because you need to gain mental space, which hopefully, if you do it right and follow all the steps, will result into physical space. So the second step is, of course, independence, and realizing that the Sanhedrin is ever present in all of your liabilities, and building a spreadsheet with personality profiles of not only the Sanhedrin, but the people, but of all your liabilities, and how these liabilities interact with the Sanhedrin. That's very important part to gaining independence, because if you can't see the Sanhedrin for who they really are, and I'll try and put a picture up later, if you can't see them for who they really are, they don't respect you. And that's one thing I've learned, not just from the Sanhedrin themselves, but the people who follow them, because they're like, hey, we can't see your God, but we can see our God, and you should be with us. And if you see it otherwise, we're going to disrespect you. So, and that's one of the things that's real big right now with me is coming out with this knowledge and saying, hey, look, we all know what's going on, and you people have been acting uh, way out of the theme of our Constitution. And I'm not going to get into that. I just want to keep in here with the steps, because the third step is freedom, and this is where you collect your spreadsheet on your assets. And your assets are things that are outside of the Sanhedrin that make you money, and or that are above reproach by the Sanhedrin. And this is an important part into building physical segregation, because if you're going to step away mentally or physically from all of the materialism and idolism that comes along with just dealing with people that promote slavery and propaganda and want to involve you into desegregation, you have to know what your assets are and how to keep building on them, and how to gain things that don't involve yourselves in the processes that are brought by the Sanhedrin. Now, the fourth step along the way, it is important to build a list of freedom fighters, and freedom fighters are those who believe that Jesus is one of 7 kings. And this is an important segregationist point, because you want to always maintain your contacts with people who believe in Christ the right way, because those who don't are a liability. And there are a lot of people out there. I ran into some people the other day who went through a great big play act, if you will, to show their love for Jesus while I was over at the beach the other day. And it was such a put on when I stopped and actually started talking to them about, well, what do you really believe? You started getting into a lot of lies, and these people were just straight up lying about Christ. And I couldn't really get to it. I was like, I appreciate the fact that you guys are at the beach, praising Christ, so at least in name. But when I asked them about their feelings on segregation, because you don't really attack people on a one-to-one on Christ, especially being that we have a Constitution. I said to them, there's a better way. And and when we got down to the nitty-gritty, they were lying, because because when you start dealing with people that are lying about just the basic concepts of Christ, and Christ being freedom incarnate, maintaining individual connections. Where's I going with this? Maintaining individual connections with freedom fighters and other people that believe correctly is going to have to be something that we hold tough to, because we've lost that in the past 60 years of our country, because this is the culmination that we're not operating in a paradigm of freedom, that our nation is closed down by pandemic, that we're living in a preschool to prison pipeline, that no one is stepping up. And I'm stepping up, but I'm pretty much by myself, and we've been hemmed in by germ warfare that is mostly fallacy. And this fallacy all goes back to 1964 in the Title VII, where Kennedy, who's a foreign insurgent, he says that, hey, look, your race doesn't matter. We're going to start teaching that George Washington is white, and that we can go to space, which is, like I said, the tipping point for heading into slavery, because none of that is true. And when you've got foreign insurgents like Kennedy, Biden, or Barack Obama for that matter, these people promote every aspect of the preschool to prison pipeline. I was even in a situation where an associate of mine in D.C., had Barack Obama come to the school that they were teaching at and start teaching kids about space. And it's like I said, that speaks directly to the idea of hey, I want to condition these kids to be raped, to keep lies, to tell lies, to other kids, and then and ultimately slavery at a very, very young age. And to know that these people are into this is something that has to stop. And because when you teach people this, the heroes become Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and these guys have elevated themselves off the idea of space travel, these billionaire space travelers who are also white Jewish men. And this is a complete and total fallacy. None of that is true. These guys are not white, they're not Jewish, they don't go to space, and although they might have $1 billion, they didn't make it on their own regard. They made it as favors. They didn't make it as members of the Union of Christ, or members of the Union of Freedom for that matter. They made it into the favor of slavery. And that's one thing that's very important to understanding how to get past this pandemic is not just, hey, look, we're going to take a lot of drugs and get over this. Is understand that, this whole thing is because of drugs, because of the drug makers, people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, who have built their whole empire off slavery. And it's no different than the slavery that was going on in the 1800s or 1700s. It's the same thing. They're doing nothing different, absolutely nothing different. And it's not something you can grab a hold of until you get into the penal system, until you go to jail. And I was locked up for 10 days. And, you hear people, when I was a youngster coming up, I used to hear on the radio rappers and entertainers telling the kids that, hey, the penal system is nothing but the slave system. It's the same thing. Only the ships are already here, and the metaphor is underused, to tell you the truth, because that's really all the prison system or jail system is. It's a slave ship. It's designed to keep people down and dehumanize the last of whatever they have in them. They don't give you a Constitution, Declaration of Independence, or the Bible when you get in there. So the whole mindset, the whole idea of helping somebody, it's not something that they're doing in the penal system. And like I said, once you measure that up and unite that with to what they're doing with space travel and the educational system, and and then when you see white soap in there and it says Bob Barker, and it's one of those things that it's sickening. It makes you sick to your stomach, when you first get in there and you see this brainwashing of people who are already brainwashed to the point that they've got in there. And part of what I'm elaborating on too is, part of me getting in there to jail was an illegal search done to me. And once I got out, we got it. All the charges were dropped or dropped to a lesser. We got a plea deal because the whole charges were fake. So they say to me, look, since you're taking our plea, the only other thing we want to do is you got to submit to being searched whenever. And that was the whole reason that started the whole problem, because the police wanted to do an illegal search. So now if I say no, they can take me to jail just off saying no to being searched for a year. But that was the whole reason that started the problem with me and the police in the first place, is that I said, no, you're doing an illegal search. You have no reason to search me. The car's not stolen. I've given you my ID. You can run my plates. There's nothing wrong here. Just write the ticket and let's be on our way. So it escalated from there, where I felt like I had to defend myself physically because they were asking to do physical things to me in a slave space. So, like I said, the ability to target. So what I want to say too is the ability to target slave members that are directly under the Sanhedrin is the reason why I created this target matrix, because like I said, it's something that started occurring to me 33 years ago, that there were people that were actively targeting me. And I said, I can see visually that you've got connections to the Sanhedrin. Less than 6 degrees of separation, even as a small child. I need to keep up with these people because they don't go to my church. Their skin might look like mine, but they don't believe like I believe, and I see them hanging with other people that aren't like people like me. So this is just something, as a child growing up in a all black neighborhood in Silver Spring, Maryland, going to Woodland Elementary School, where there's not a white neighborhood for 20, 30, 40 miles any way out of DC. So knowing that, is the reason that you have to create a target matrix. That I created a target matrix aggregator console, because you need a console to first aggregate your information and then put it into a situation where you can work it so that you can see your way out, and you can say, hey, look, these are the things that I need to do to first segregate myself mentally from what they're doing, and start building my assets, and then use these assets to make a physical movement away from the people who want to do slavery. And if you're a slave, that's okay, but it's, once you want to do slavery, that's a problem. It's a big problem for everybody, man. And it's a big problem for our country, because we're seeing a lot of people in here who coming from slave countries that are run by slaves, and they come here, and all of a sudden they're able to hop in front of people who are fighting for freedom, which is what's going on right now within this pandemic, within pandemic that's being supported by a growing real estate market, which doesn't make any sense. The only way it does make sense is that we're not operating in a free market, and that's what's going on. Our market is no longer free, and the communists are now have installed full-fledged slavery under the Sanhedrin. And it's something that we've always got to remember, is that the Sanhedrin's run by Bowser, the mayor of DC, and Mark Zuckerberg and Dave Chappelle. And it's one of those things that, like I said, you have to understand their personality to really grow into an understanding of what freedom is, and why it is so important. And and part of coming up with this app was being able to take information like this and deal with it in a safe and responsible manner, and be able to say, hey, look, this is what's going on, and I have to keep my family safe, and for that matter, keep myself safe, because our freedom is in jeopardy. And the very fundamentals that we are placing our country on aren't being respected by the president or vice president, or any members of Congress, because this insolvency is exactly what the Constitution was written against. Is that you can't just sit here and say, hey, there's a problem, I can't solve it, I'm the king. Which is pretty much what Joe Biden is doing. And he's an enemy of the state, just like, or I should say, the people, just like Kennedy was, and or Martin Luther King, for that matter. These people don't believe in white supremacy. They think it's something evil, and they don't see Jesus in the idea of white supremacy. So or segregation, for that matter. And they want to make it a dirty word, and it's so dirty that it's been outlawed for the last 60 years. And when you stop and put that into regards of what's happening to our men in the penal system, it's something where we have to say, look, this women's suffrage, it's got to stop, and we've got to rewrite things, and take charge by any means necessary. And that's something I don't want to raise my voice on too loud, just because I shouldn't have to right now, because after you've been to jail and seen what's going on in there, it's something that I'm not willing to take no for an answer. And I'm not willing to negotiate on any other terms other than to say, hey, look, we were right, you're right, and we're wrong. And some people have to be brought to justice on espionage charge, that you have been doing this. You've been promoting slavery. People are doing slavery now. This is why the whole Constitution was written, to protect men from slavery. Women are already slaves. That's just what it is. It's just facts. Children are slaves. Women are slaves. And all men were created equal. If you stayed that, not staying that way is because of slavery. And a lot of men don't want to. You look at Caitlyn, Kris Jenner, or whoever, or a bunch of celebrities I can't think of, Medea. These people will say, look, we're black men, and we don't want to honor freedom, and honor Jesus, and honor what takes place, and they're doing whatever it takes to usurp manhood from our country. And it's something that has to be taken seriously, and it's something that I want to give content on every day. I'm in the worst spot of my life because, like I said, the Sanhedrin is very active in stopping freedom, and it's something that I know the Sanhedrin personally, and it's something that coming to that reality and realization that, hey, these are actually the people. It's at a point sickening, but at another point it allows me to take away the emotion of being enslaved against my will. And there's a lot that goes along with that, and growing up in a household where I was enslaved, and you know and trying to get away from that, and not being able to, and being but being locked into a situation where there's nothing but illusion around you. So uh, that's the point of what I want to get into in the message we're going to have to do to destroy this preschool to prison pipeline, because there are a lot of people eating off the plate of the preschool to prison pipeline, and there's a lot of people that's going to get hurt on the way down with this thing, and that's not my concern. The only concern is freedom, and you know, so it takes, you got to break a couple eggs to make an omelet. So that's my whole viewpoint on what it's going to take to get past this pandemic, get our country back into the freedom, and get back to honoring the Constitution and the freedom that Jesus inspires. So, hey, look, thanks for listening. I'm going to have some visuals to go along with this a little later. But right now, we just got to get the word part out and get the word out that, hey, this is going on. This is what we're doing. Hey, thanks for listening. Take care, and God bless.